Go ahead. So we're going to open this up to questions from the audience, but I thought I would just kick it off by asking probably a question you get asked a lot when talking about this film. Chris, could you talk about, this is your first feature film, so I'm wondering if you could talk about how you came to feel connected to goats as your first feature project, and what about it spoke to you?
I read Mark's book in 2001, soon after it was published, and I just loved the book. I loved it for its writing. I loved it for just all the cinematic qualities, the visual qualities. The characters were so well drawn. But I also loved it because it felt incredibly familiar to me. I grew up on a goat farm until I was 13 years old. and my mom was very much involved in the New Age movement in Northern California. And my stepfather was a Berkeley grad school dropout who hung out in the goat pen, had long hair and a big beard, and smoked a lot of pot. And my dad was not really on the scene, so it was a lot like Frank. And it just was really eerie how close it seemed to mirror my own life. And so when Mark and I met, he said, "You know this book better than I do." And I was like, it just felt like a collaboration right from the get-go.
He did know the book better than I do, and he continues to. He would, during the filming, he would often say, "Well, let's do that thing from the book. You know, when Goatman says, sadness? I don't really remember that." It's like page 174. But he really knows the book inside and out. It's really gratifying to know that the book went into such good hands.
Chris has, I think you call it the prompt book. He took the entire novel and put it page by page into a book next to the script.
I did, and then Jessica, who's out in the audience, my amazing assistant on this film, she put this whole book together. It was, well, you can describe it.
No, you describe it better, but it's amazing.
Basically, I cut the novel apart and created sort of a novel version of the script. It was in this binder. It was about that thick. And so at any point when we were shooting any scene, I could flip to the actual page of the novel with all my notes on it. And we often, when we were setting up to do a scene, we would go into the big binder and look at the novel to sort of see what kind of details that I wanted to bring in certain lines from the novel that the actors might want to use in the scene. So I directed kind of from the book, actually.
So Mark, could you just talk a little bit also about how much of yourself is in the character of Ellis or any of the characters, or how much do you want to reveal in public? I don't know.
I've never been a big stoner. I wasn't, so I don't know why I, created these characters. I feel like I know kind of where like Wendy might come from, and I went to Greenfield's Country Day School, and there were a lot of sort of people who escaped from the East Coast and came to Tucson to throw pots or grow pot or so she's sort of a bunch of my friends' moms. And she has the personality of my mother. That's totally not true. My mother doesn't even know what a caftan is. I think when I went away to college back east, and it was really, really hard for me. Like the difference between Tucson and the East Coast I had a really hard time with it. So I think that the novel was really, and I think it comes across in the film too, was about that sort of like leaving Tucson for anywhere else is really hard. And so even though Ellis felt like he was escaping, Wendy, and I think also down deep Goatman, he felt like he was escaping them, it was still so hard for him. So I guess that's all there is of me in there. I think there's more of my friends in there. Honestly, I think that I sort of gathered a lot from my friends.
So Jett and Shannon, as the producers of the film, I know that maybe there was some talk of filming this in New Mexico, all of it. So I'm just wondering how it seems natural and logical that it was shot in Tucson, but I'm wondering what that process was like.
Yeah, I think at the beginning they did want to shoot everything in New Mexico, and that Chris was always really firmly believed that we should shoot it in Tucson because that's where the book was set. So that's actually kind of when I came on the scene, was when they were talking about shooting it in Tucson. So we came out here to see if it was possible, and we found out there was a great crew, great locations here. So we did it.
Yay, thank you.
Fantastic house owned by Heidi Baldwin. She was so welcoming. And,
Who's here? Heidi's here.
Heidi's here. Hi, Heidi. Yeah, and she really welcomed the entire crew into her house, and you know, just made us feel really at home, as did the rest of the Tucson community. We're really grateful.
And we never would have found Tommy DiMaggio, who was our goat, our real goat runner, had we not come to Tucson.
Well, I just want to thank you guys. Tucson has suffered the indignity of having a film set here and being shot in Mexico several times. So I really love the fact that it's actually here in the locations from the book and in the script. And so thank you, and I'm sure Tucson really appreciates it.
The film, like Shelley Hall and the Film Commission, really
Yay!
worked hard. I mean, they really, it was unbelievable what they did for us, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that we found out really fast was that New Mexico looks like the desert, but it doesn't look like the Tucson desert. Like, Tucson has a really unique look. It's really beautiful, and Tim Flood, who's here too, also, he spent forever driving around and looking at, just big plots of desert all over the city, and we found some really beautiful spots.
Thanks for letting me be picky, Tim.
And I believe all the East Coast scenes were shot in New Mexico, right?
Some of them were, yeah, we're a little secretive about our East Coast locations, but a lot of the interiors that you see, the boarding school interiors, most of them, like the dorm room and such, were shot in downtown Albuquerque.
Does anyone have any questions? Maybe we'll open up to the audience. I'm sure there's a few questions here. How about that gentleman right there?
Yes, the book seems to lend itself so well to the cinema form. Did you picture it as a film that you wrote, or did you stumble into it?
I didn't actually. I just, it started as a short story, and then my professor at the time in graduate school said, you should just make this a novel, come in next week with 20 more pages. And that's how I did it. It was way back in '94. And then Diana Osana, who's here tonight, actually edited the novel for me. And then from there, so maybe, I don't know, maybe back somewhere in some crinkle in my brain, I thought that it should be a film, but it wasn't, I didn't consciously think it should be a film.
Over here in the front, sir.
Yeah, I thought it was a very charming and touching movie. I have one question, and that is, why does Ellis reject the lovely young lady who was obviously attracted to him? It just didn't make sense to me in terms of the whole movie.
Well, my feeling was that from the minute she posed the question, he sort of knew that it wasn't just a romantic proposition, that there was money involved, and that's confirmed just a few seconds later. So
I didn't get that. How was it confirmed?
She says, why don't you put some of that allowance your parents give you, or why don't you spend some of that allowance your parents give you for being the perfect boy?
that's just the next thing she says after he says, I don't think so.
Oh.
Yeah, the question was, why does Ellis reject the charming woman at the end of the film? So I'll repeat the questions, maybe, so we can do them. How about right here, ma'am?
So how did you pick those two great leading characters? How did David Duchovny go from X-Files to Goatman?
How did David Duchovny get in the film? And I'd like to know that, too, because that was an inspired bit of casting, and he was amazing. How did that happen?
It was one of those things where we just, we were sort of going through, different ideas for actors, and it just seemed like something that he hadn't done before, and right away, that was like, wow, that's very interesting. The other thing I like about David as an actor is that he whether he's in X-Files or Californication, he has this ability as an actor to sort of create his own rhythm, his own energy within the scene, even if everything around him is really crazy. And I felt like that was a quality that Goatman needed to have, because he really sort of moves to the beat of his own drum, and the world sort of goes on, you know, whether it's crazy or not crazy around him, and he just kind of does his own thing, and David has that quality. And it's also nice to see him play an actor that's a lot more innocent, a lot more childlike than anything we've seen him do before.
And I believe Vera Farmiga is actually a shepherdess, right? Doesn't she have goats of her own?
Yeah, she does. She lives on a farm in upstate New York, and she has 4 goats. She loved the script just from the title, and I think she really enjoyed the character. She's also a mom. She has like a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so she really loved the sort of the playing a character that was struggling with, you know, sort of mother issues.
Just in terms of something related to the acting question, you had an interesting career before you made this film. You were an acting coach on a lot of films, like from Virgin Suicides up to Star Wars Episode 3, right? Revenge of the Sith. You were the acting coach. So
it's very similar films.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot there was acting in Star Wars Episode 3. So you obviously came at this from a real kind of comfortable position working with actors. I mean, does that sort of inform your work as a director?
I look at everything in terms of filmmaking. For me, my training was really to approach filmmaking through acting and writing. Those are the 2 most important components of filmmaking. So I was very comfortable working with the actors. I was really comfortable on set. And I think in terms of making the film and all the other sort of technical aspects and, you know, the shooting of it, and I felt like I had done like 10 years of soft prep from the first conversation all the way up until shooting. So it felt pretty natural. And working with the actors felt pretty normal.
Yeah, the acting was amazing in the film. How about you, sir, right here?
Mark, it seems to me like you found not only a really wonderfully talented director, but also one who really respected your book. And this thing about the binder, would that every writer could have a director who had a binder like that. But I'm wondering, in the screenwriting, did you, because after all, the binder is much larger. A book is just much larger in terms of the amount of words than a script and the amount of things that can happen. So I'm wondering if you, the screenwriter, hated you, the novelist, or the prose writer in the first fight, did you argue with each other about what you had to lose?
Will is asking about the schizophrenic battle between novelist and screenwriter and how you sort of cope with that.
Well, I worked with Chris very closely on the script from the beginning. I knew he would be a good person for it, you know, 10 minutes into our first conversation. Not only did he, you know, have all these sort of uncanny connections to the novel, but he seemed like a nice guy. And he also put his money where his mouth was, which a lot of people in Hollywood don't. I love your novel, I want to option it. Will you write this on spec? He wasn't like that. He was dedicated from the first meeting. So I knew that I was in good hands with Chris right away. In terms of like what we had to cut from the novel and all of that, I think we were most concerned with preserving the tone of the novel and sort of less concerned with preserving plot points. So it was kind of easy to see what needed to fall away and what we were going to keep. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a fair bit of stuff that's in the script that wasn't in the novel.
Right,
either.
sure.
I mean, we created a lot of connective tissue, and the book is so wonderful because it goes back and forth chapter by chapter in this parallel narrative, but that doesn't always work in the film. It's easy to start to have it feel episodic, so we really worked on trying to sort of figure out sort of the character arcs and Ellis's through line, making sure that when we cut back to Tucson, we were cutting back in a way that worked with Ellis's story, as well as sort of develop Goatman and Wendy and Bennett and all the other characters in Tucson.
Well, it worked. Smooth as silk. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, a lot of credit to Shannon as well. She was sort of our guide and our editor throughout, so thank you.
she was a true producer, one who actually developed the script with us and gave us notes and all of that. So it's hard to find. You'll see that there are like 47,000 producers on this. Often a producer in an independent film is just someone who helps finance the movie. But Shannon was sort of a true producer in that she, like I said, she developed the script with us. So.
And Mark, you also wrote another screenplay for the movie Smart People, which was not based on one of your original novels. So I'm wondering what kind of difference there is between working on something that you've worked on for years or something that is not yours.
Smart People was living in my head as a novel for years. And I actually wrote a short story. The first short story I ever wrote, actually, had characters from Smart People in it. And because of Goats, because of the novel Goats, I got a screenwriting fellowship in LA for a year, and I'd never written a screenplay. And to get this fellowship, you could send in any form of writing. So I sent in Goats, and I got this fellowship, and I went out there to, learn how to be a screenwriter, but I didn't know what I was going to write, and I knew I couldn't write about exploding robots or anything like that. So my friend at the time said, "Why don't you just write that novel that you're about to write as a screenplay?" And so that's how Smart People came about.
Well, I would request a film version of Naked Pueblo. If you've ever read the short story collection Naked Pueblo, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I saw it as a movie when I read it. Both times that I read it. Is there any other questions out here? How about over here?
Yeah, this is for either one of you. Besides growing up or being on a goat farm, do you know anybody of any nomadic goat herders or anybody like that?
Well, yeah, as I said, my stepfather pretty much was goat man. To such a degree that when David and I first sat down, I showed him pictures of myself and my stepfather on a goat farm, and he kind of like took them from me and made it pretty clear he was not going to give them back. And he used a lot of my photo albums from my own family, a lot of photos from my family album as references for goat man's wardrobe, and actually for like the construction of the goat pen and what's in goat man's tool shed and where the hay bales go and stuff. So that's pretty much in my own history.
Any other questions out there? How about right here? Hello.
Hi. I was really struck before the film started that, Chris, that you said that when you came to Tucson and you filmed here, that you fell in love with Tucson for real. And yes, and as the marketing director for the Tucson CBB, who gets to market this beautiful region to visitors, all over the world, we market this destination as the real Southwest. And you did a phenomenal job of showcasing the true, beautiful, natural assets of Tucson and Southern Arizona, and want to thank you as a member of the Metropolitan Tucson Convention and Visitors Bureau. And also, the Tucson Film Office is a division of our organization, and Shelley Hall asked me to stand up and say thank you. She is at Sundance right now. She saw the premiere there both times, 4,000 people. It was sold out. And we want to thank you for filming here. It does a lot for our community. It was an economic impact of nearly $1 million. And it's a beautiful film. It's a beautiful story. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
What's really nice is that the three people really responsible, like from the film side, for having it filmed in Tucson, are on the stage. Shannon, Jett, and Chris really fought for Tucson and realized that Albuquerque is in Tucson and it never will be. So you need to thank these three.
Thank you very much.
You have a question here, sir, Rick?
Yeah. I love the fact that at the end, Ellis's love interest gave him the Grapes of Wrath as her favorite book. Any rationale on why you selected that one as
The question is, why was Grapes of Wrath selected as her favorite book?
I think I pushed, like Chris and I were talking about it, and it's one of my favorite books, but it's what?
It's also my favorite.
And it's actually not my favorite, but it's my good friend Elaine, it's her favorite book, and so I thought, you know what, a little shout out to Elaine, never heard.
So you've described this as a coming-of-age story in reverse, and so I was expecting the favorite novel to be Catcher in the Rye, which you probably heard that before. Was Catcher in the Rye ever an influence on the character?
I think, you know, like every other person who's passed through the 10th grade, I love Catcher in the Rye. And once, there was a really good review of the novel that said that Goats, the novel, was sort of like the opposite of Catcher in the Rye, in that Holden Caulfield escapes from boarding school, and that Ellis Whitman escapes to boarding school. And so I guess probably somewhere in the back of my skull, Catcher in the Rye was lurking. But what do you think?
I don't really have anything else to add, really.
Sorry.
That's a big no. Okay. Are there any other questions out here? Yeah, how about right here?
Yeah. What is the next step as far as after the festival? How will the film be distributed? Will we see it in commercial?
Yeah, the hope is that we'll be in theaters this year. Yeah, the process of getting distribution takes anywhere a couple weeks, couple months. You know, it's just there's a lot of films that screen and a lot of negotiations and buyers and talks. And so we're hoping that we have something in place distribution-wise, you know, very soon.
And I will just say that having come from Sundance, something that we've learned is that these companies that buy these films to distribute them really sort of have an ear on the ground as to whether audiences respond to them, because critics sort of come at it from a very different place. So if the film is something that you like, it doesn't hurt to talk about it, because distributors really hear that and they try to sort of get a feel for what the general public is enjoying, and so that helps.
So, you know, if you did, it would really, I think it would really help the film that if you like it, you know, go and post a review on IMDb, or go and post a review on, I don't know, Box Office Mojo or whatever, and talk about it, because I think it would, I think you're right. I think they really do have their ears to the ground and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the groundswell really needs to come from the audiences, and the audience, the two screenings we attended at Sundance were just like this, where people really went into the movie from moment to moment, and so that feels really good for us, and it's really, like these guys said, it's very helpful for distributors to see that people are being proactive and talking about the film. IMDb is a great place. You can sign up as a user. It just takes like 15 seconds, and then you can post your own review. So if you love it, go do it. Do it tonight. Do it this weekend.
And if you hate it, go to hell.
What's that website? You can find it in Google. So, are there any other questions? How about back there with the waving hat?
Are there projects that you have worked on since Goat? One of you or all four of you?
Are there post-Ghost projects that you're working on?
I've been working on Goats all year. I've been working on Goats for 10 years, so I'm going to go home tomorrow, and I don't know what I'm going to do. No, I don't really have, I mean, I have a few things that I'm thinking about, a few things that we're talking about.
Yeah, Chris and I we hope to collaborate again on something. We have an idea cooking in the back of our stalls.
Getting ready to produce another project.
That's true, I am.
Enigmatic, that's good. How about right back there with the waving hand? Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about something. The primal screen coach at the end.
No, actually, it was Minnie Driver, and our most well-known extra in the movie. No, Minnie came out. She loved the film. She loved the script. She came out and did a little cameo for us, just an uncredited little appearance in the film.
about right here in the middle?
Who came up with Wendy's wardrobe?
Who came up with Wendy's wardrobe?
That was
It was based on my mother's.
my costume designer, her name is Kate de Blasio. She's based out of LA, and she's just a real talent. We've worked together a bunch of commercials that I've directed, and she read the script and she fell in love like we all did with how eccentric that character was. And she just pulled all these amazing pieces, and she and Vera had a fantastic time suiting her up.
Or the better question is, who made Justin Kirk's bathing suit? That's very memorable. Tasty, dude. The questions, how about right here?
Was it hard to work with goats themselves? Did they have special treatment? Did you have a trailer for them, or a double like
Did we have a trailer for them? Yeah. Hey, Tommy DiMaggio, can you stand up for us, please? Tommy was absolutely indispensable in helping us make this movie. He taught David and Graham how to work with the goats, and he took them up into the mountains goat trekking, and he was there every day, climbing up and down mountains with my unit and with my second unit. And you know, it was difficult at times working with the goats, you know, in cramped quarters in the Jetta. Lance had huge horns. And, but the actors, I think, because Tommy was just so comfortable around the goats, they sort of watched him and learned how he worked with them. And we fell into a groove pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's one right here, sir.
Does David Duchovny really know how to speak like a goat?
He does, yeah. If you Google David Duchovny, David Letterman, there's actually like a segment on him talking about his goat thing, which he started in high school with his friends, and he basically has this goat language that he would speak with. So I think when he read the script, he felt like, oh, no, I could actually do it myself.
There's a question right behind you. Soundtrack available?
Soundtrack will be available, yeah. The film was scored by some really amazing musicians. All the reggae that you heard Goatman and Ellis listening to was recorded